Our main event today is Professor Brandon Vickerd. Brandon is a professor in our Visual Art and Art History department. Brandon, how long have you been at York?
This will be my 17th year.
17 years.
Yes.
So Brandon, in addition to being a professor, has also served as the chair of the Department of Visual Art and Art History. His areas of expertise are public art, sculpture, foundry, and art theory. So Brandon's going to tell you all about the program. And again, any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A that you can find along the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those after the presentation. So over to you, Brandon.
Great. So I'm just going to begin by sharing my screen with a little presentation that I prepared. So thank you everybody for joining us today. It's wonderful to have you here in this virtual space. I'd much rather be doing this in person and being able to take you on a tour of our wonderful facilities and show you everything that York's campus has to offer you. However, this is how we have to manage it at this current point in time. What I'm going to talk about today is York's Visual Arts and Art History Department and the programs we offer. I'm going to begin by talking about some of the ins and outs of our program, some of its strengths, some things to consider. We're going to lead into a discussion about how you apply and put a portfolio together, and then hopefully some Q&A. So I've been teaching at York University for 17 years now. I teach in the Visual Arts Studio program. So I teach mainly sculpture classes. So everything from intro sculpture, like bronze casting, steel fabrication, woodworking, to some of our large intro theory classes. So first year students may meet with me on a weekly basis to talk about art theory and art concepts as part of their studies program. One of the things I really want to stress today about the Visual Arts and Art History program at York University is the fact that it is a small art school that's part of a large university. And this is something that is really important for our student experience. So our program is very small and it's very selective. We try to keep enrollment at the first year level under about 100 students. So that seems quite small, but that's so you can get to know the faculty, get to know the facilities, get to develop one-on-one mentoring relationships with the faculty members you're going to be working with. However, we're part of a big university because we realize that one of the most important things about being an artist is understanding our role in society. So you may come to us for visual arts, but you might also take psychology classes or education classes or political science or maybe biology or computer programming. And because we're part of a large university, you have access to all these other programs and resources that a large university permits you. So again, we're a small program, but part of a larger community, and that's what really benefits our students. So the Visual Arts and Art History program, this is a picture of our building, the Goldfarb Center for the Arts, and this is from the 1970s. So I always like to throw this in because this is like the last unobstructed view of our building that we have. York is a thriving campus. There's about 50,000 students who attend campus. It has a very vibrant student life, very vibrant academic life. There's plenty of social activities and a thriving community for our students to participate in. But this building you see in front of us here, this becomes your home for the 4 years you spend in our program. We really encourage students to make this space their own. It's where they take classes like art history and studies, but it's also where they spend time in the studios. So in the painting studio, in the sculpture studio, in the printmaking, in the photo labs, this is the physical location that students really inhabit during their 4 years in our community. So some of the questions or some of the ideas we're going to explore today are 4 main questions. And the first is York the right school for me? Why York? What should I put in my portfolio? And how do I apply? I'm going to answer these 4 questions because after years of doing these kind of presentations, these seem to be the most pressing concerns that students have. However, I want to make sure that everybody gets the answers they need at this stage. So please feel free to throw some questions into the Q&A or the chat, and I am glad to answer them as we progress through this presentation. So the first question is York the right school for me? You know, the only way to answer that is to describe our program and what we have to offer. So as I've already stated, we are a small art school that's part of a large university. Now, as part of a small art school, it's a real hands-on learning environment. Most of our studio classes are taught by full-time permanent faculty, and they are capped at between 20 and 25 students. This means when you're learning to paint, when you're working in the foundry casting bronze, when you're making lithography prints in the printmaking studio, you are in a class that is quite small by the university standards, so that you do get the attention and the support you need from faculty. We also stress that our faculty are all experienced professional artists. So it's not a theoretical investigation. I am teaching you how to cast bronze or work in steel based on my real world experience doing these things. So it's not simply about you coming to our program to learn these skills, it's also about the mentoring relationship. So I provide some real world insight on how you live as an artist, how you make a living, things you need to consider when you're choosing this career path. We really stress this idea of experiential education. It's extremely important for us for our students to have that hands-on knowledge acquisition in the studios. You learn by doing, and then you learn further through the conversations we have in those classes. Another important aspect of York University is, again, that it's part of a larger community so that you can pursue other interests. As a professor, I encourage my students to take students in areas that they have other interests. So if you're interested in, say, critical writing, in theater, in performance studies, if you're interested in gender studies or political science, I recognize that when you take one of those classes, the things you learn and the information you gain, you bring back to the studio, and it makes you a better artist. We try to stress that the Visual Arts BFA Honors Program is a balanced degree and an excellent preparation for a career as an artist, art educator, arts administrator, or as preparation for further study at the postgraduate level. And when we say a balanced degree, what we mean is it's a balance between studio classes and studies classes. So that would be like seminar classes where you're discussing the history of art or contemporary art ideas with a cohort of your fellow students. What you do in those studies classes, again, makes you a better artist in the studio. We're one of the very few programs in Canada that stresses this combination of academic research with studio production. Most of our students go on to thriving careers in the arts. I know there's a myth that if you go into a visual arts program, that you're gonna spend your life as a starving artist. And you know, that is truly a myth. Like any other university program, you get out of it what you put into it. And part of my role as a faculty member is helping you figure out what your career path is. Maybe you are going to be an artist. Maybe you are going to be somebody who makes paintings or sculptures, photography, and exhibits professionally. Maybe an art educator teaching at the high school or grade school level is more the direction your career is taking. We also have a lot of our former students who go on to arts administrator roles, working in galleries or in municipalities or in other universities, helping administer arts programs. We also have a fair number of our students that go on to be writers and gallery directors and curators, working in any range of the professional arts field. One of the key things about our program is that you must take academic and studio courses that build depth and breadth of knowledge, critical thinking, and communication skills on top of this idea of autonomy and professionalism. I want to stress that professionalism aspect of our program. A visual arts program is only as good as its students once they graduate. So part of my job as an instructor is preparing you for your career as a professional artist or a professional arts educator, if that's the direction you're going in. So one of the things we do in our program is offer mentoring opportunities We offer paid opportunities for students to work with faculty or in the studio so that they can gain that real world job experiential education. We also teach classes on how to be a professional artist. So as an artist, how do you promote yourself? How do you develop a web presence? How do you develop your promotional side of your arts practice? What are some of the career paths that you might follow? We bring in a lot of our alumni who've gone through these steps in their own career, who do presentations to our students about their own career paths and allow for networking opportunities. So part of my teaching duty is preparing you for a career in the visual arts and for operating as a professional. One of the most important aspects of our program is for anybody who's interested in a career as an educator, you can take our concurrent education degree at York University. Typically, if you're going into education, you do a 4-year undergrad degree and then another 2 years of your education degree. At York, we have this program called the Concurrent Education degree, whereby the 2nd or 3rd year of your program, you can apply for the Concurrent Education degree and earn part of your educational degree while you're already doing your BFA program. So what this does is it eliminates about an extra year of study off your time in university and moves you into the career field faster. Another key aspect of our program is that since we are a big university, you can do things like double majors. So you can do a major in visual arts and a major in English literature. You can do a major in psychology and a major in visual arts. So if you're interested in maybe as a career as an art therapist, that is something you might want to explore. There's also a whole range of majors and minors that you can take. So you can major in visual arts and do a minor in the sciences, or do a minor in computer engineering. There's really a wide breadth of opportunities for our students, and it's really up to you to determine what educational path is most appropriate. One of the key aspects of our program is our fabulous facilities. Our on-campus visual arts building has some of the best facilities in North America, if not easily the best in Canada. We have, this is just a picture of our foyer area where most of our students kind of hang out in this courtyard here in between classes. We have extensive computer labs with all the software programs that you might need to learn. These are classrooms where classes are taught. So an instructor will come in, 25 students will be using the studio. The faculty member will work with you, demonstrate things to you. And then after class time, the studios are open for student access to complete their projects. We have one of the best printmaking studios in Canada with lithography, silkscreen, intaglio, non-traditional printmaking, bookmaking, pretty much any range of printmaking processes you might be interested in. And as I list off all the processes and materials we do in our studio, I think it's really important to acknowledge that some of these terms you might not be familiar with. Maybe you've never done lithography. Maybe you've never done color photography processing. And that's fine, because when you take one of our intro classes, we take you and we introduce all of these skills. So just because you haven't had that experience, it doesn't mean you can't be successful in our program. Part of our job is to prepare you and teach you these skills as you progress through. Our sculpture facilities are easily the best in Canada. We do every sculptural process that you can possibly imagine. Everything from really traditional processes, say like stone carving, which has been around since the Stone Age, or bronze casting, which has been around since the Bronze Age, to wood carving, steel fabrication, but also 3D printing. We also have a large-scale CNC milling machine and 3D scanners. So you'll notice that if you join us in our program, we don't necessarily separate processes. So we don't view analog production as different than digital production. In fact, we introduce both simultaneously in our classes. So our students are just as skilled at stone carving as they are at 3D printing. And we think it's really important for our students to develop skills that enable them to go back and forth between analog and digital. This is our digital photo printing studio. And as you can see, there's some computers with Photoshop and all the necessary software you might need, but we also have large scale printers. And again, this is a teaching classroom, but then it's also staffed by technicians and senior students after hours so that students and faculty can come in and complete their projects. And when I say students and faculty, I really want to stress that this is not simply an educational environment. I don't just show up to the sculpture studio and teach you how to cast bronze or work with metal. I also use it for my own research. So after class time, I'm there in the studios producing art alongside my students. And I think this is a really important teaching opportunity for our students because they get to see how professional artists actually operate in the real world. How do you work with materials? How do you work professionally? How do you acquire skills and problem solve as you're conducting your research? So all our classes have this small scale mentoring relationship. Again, studio classes are capped at 20 to 25 students. So you really get to know the faculty members you're working with and get to have really in-depth conversations about your progress as an artist. Even our studies classes, you will take some studies classes that are large scale. That's just typical of a modern university. But once you get to second or third year, our studies classes get to be a little bit smaller. They get to be what's called a seminar class. So you might decide to take a third or fourth year seminar class focusing on curatorial studies. Maybe you're thinking about being a curator at the ROM or the AGO, and that's something you want to explore. Well, you can take one of our curatorial studies classes that is not only taught by a faculty member, but somebody who works as a professional curator. Some of our studies faculty have curated shows at the Art Gallery of Ontario or the Power Plant Gallery. They are just as active as our studio faculty. So they're teaching what they do every day. They're not simply academics or professors, but they are practitioners. And they are interested in what our students have to say about this practice and what the students kind of can contribute to these conversations. We also have a series of on-campus galleries, and we really stress that you learn to be an artist through making art and presenting it. So we have 2 on-campus galleries that are in our building and a number of other on-campus galleries spread out across our campus. We really encourage students to exhibit in these spaces, both as solo exhibitions and in group exhibitions, because the only way you're going to know if the complex ideas you're trying to convey with your artwork is being received by the audience is through exhibiting it. We don't make these paintings and photographs and sculptures for ourselves. We make them for a broad, dynamic community. And part of learning to be an artist is having these opportunities to present your work. As an institution, we really stress this idea of experiential education so that you're presenting your work professionally. We also give our students the opportunity to present their work professionally outside of the university. So in a typical year, there's usually about 3 to 4 professional exhibitions that we support, either group shows or 2-person shows of our student work in downtown Toronto. So these are juried events, and they're meant to represent our faculty, but also to give our students that professional opportunity to present their work to a larger audience. Along with the galleries, some of the most important educational experience you will have will be in the classroom, but as equally important is that social aspect of being an artist. So attending the on-campus openings or attending the openings downtown and talking to faculty about the work you're seeing and the experience you're having. Talking to faculty about what they see in your artwork as you're professionally presenting it. This is part of that mentoring experience that we really stress with our students. We also hold a number of special events over the course of a year. For instance, every March we have our open house where all our 3rd and 4th year students, we clear out the studios and they display their best artworks from the previous year. And we invite all their families and friends and the larger York community into our building for an afternoon and an evening where there's a reception, there's an award ceremony, but it's really a celebration of the work our students have done. So faculty and staff and fellow students from across the university come and they walk through the building, they look at the artwork, and then they vote and choose artwork to receive awards and recognition at the end of the evening. Another very important thing we do is artist talks. So we realize that you learn to be an artist through having contact with other artists, through networking with other artists. So when I'm teaching a second year or a third year or fourth year class, I ensure that over the course of the semester, I bring in 2 to 3 professional artists from the community to talk to my students. I do this because those community members bring a different perspective than I might have as an educator and as an artist. And that diverse range of perspectives is really important to highlighting your future path as an artist. So exposing you to as many artists as possible is one of the key aspects of our program. And this is just a poster from our BFA juried exhibition from a few years ago. And again, it's our York University Department of Visual Arts and Art History presenting student work at Gallery 1313, which is at a professional gallery downtown on Queen Street West. And so this was a juried exhibition where any fourth year student could apply. Faculty and curators in a department got together and chose the works that we thought best represented our program. They were selected and presented in this professional exhibition with an opening and all the celebration that goes along with it. Along with special events, along with our program, we have many special events, not just visiting artists and artist talks, but we also have award ceremonies and ceremonies where we recognize the hard work our students do over the course of the year. And again, when I look at a picture like this, I think that this encapsulates our program because it's about community. It's about people coming together with a shared pursuit of supporting each other in the creation of art, but also in charting their career paths as they move forward. A couple of things to keep in mind is that York offers numerous awards and scholarships on an annual basis. And we always encourage our students to apply for these scholarships and awards. Typically every year there's a call that goes out in October and November, and students can apply for these awards online. And it's something to consider when you're choosing if York is a good fit for you. We do have, any number of bursaries and scholarships that can support you as you progress. And I want to stress that it's not just the money that these scholarships provide, it's something to put on your resume so that when you do graduate from our program, there's something on your CV that adds to your credentials so that when you're applying for a job or maybe an education degree or another master's degree, these awards and scholarships help you leverage your time at York into future career opportunities. Our department also offers unique mentorship opportunities and paid training opportunities. So as a faculty member, when I'm working in the studio on a funded research project, typically in a year, I hire 1 to 2 undergrads to work with me. So they get paid by the university to help me develop and construct my research. So that can be anything from developing a new way to cast bronze to casting a bronze statue that's going to be displayed in a public setting. And again, this is not just a mentorship opportunity, but it is a paid job that students get. We also hire our second, third, and fourth year students to run our facilities in the evening. So after I'm done teaching class and the technicians go home and the faculty go home, we recognize that students need to stay in our facilities to complete their projects. So what we do is we hire our own students to oversee the safe operation of our facilities so that other students can have access. And again, it's not just about getting paid to do this job, it's about participating in this community of education. Another key aspect about our program is the opportunity to study abroad. So if you are all interested in taking maybe a semester in Japan or China, maybe you're interested in going and studying in France or Greece, these are all opportunities we support for our students. We have a number of study abroad opportunities and relationships with other institutions, and we can help facilitate these semesters abroad. So it's something to consider doing in your third or maybe even your fourth year of your time at York University. So when we talk about the programs we offer, the main program we offer is our BFA, which is the Bachelor of Fine Arts in Studio. And this is an honors program. It's where you get to work in sculpture, photography, printmaking, maybe video art or sound art, photography. I mean, there's a whole range of processes students can take advantage of. There's a couple of unique features about our BFA in Studio Arts program. One of them is our fundamentals class. So if you decide to join us and you're accepted to our program, in the first semester, you have to take our fundamentals class, which meets twice a week, usually on Monday mornings and Wednesday mornings. And this is an intensive cross-media class that is intended not only to build community among our first-year students, but also to expose you to all the different ranges of classes and medium and skills that you have the opportunity to explore in our visual arts program. So if you've never done photography before, you get a chance to explore that in this fundamentals class. Our fundamentals program is taught by full-time faculty. So it could be, maybe taught by me next September. But it's really crucial that it's a small class. So these classes tend to be between 20 and 25 students, and it's the same students that you're going to be working with again and again over the next 4 years. Another important aspect of our program is that we have a senior capstone year. So this is a 4th year that is really quite intense and is only open to Bachelor of Fine Arts majors. And this is an opportunity for you to develop an intensive body of research, a body of work, and professionalize yourself. So there's a bunch of activities and classes planned around preparing you for a professional career as an artist. So things like how to develop exhibition proposals, how to write grant proposals, how to do studio visits and work with curators. These are all things that we explore in the 4th year of our program to prepare students for a career as a professional artist or an art educator or a curator. It's really up to the student to decide which career path best suits them. A couple of unique features about our program. It's definitely an interdisciplinary university. So we recognize that when you come to York, you may be wanting to learn how to be a professional artist, but again, it's extremely important that you're able to situate your art career in a larger society and realize that art doesn't happen in a vacuum. That as artists, we draw from things like philosophy or environmental studies or urban studies or gender politics studies. And again, these classes you take, you bring back into the studio with you, and they make you a better artist. So it's really that interdisciplinary approach to a university education that we take as our model. Again, I would stress that we are a small art school that's part of a big university. Excuse me. Another very popular program we have is the Bachelor's of Arts and Art History. So this program, you do have to take some studio classes like sculpture, photography, or other hands-on courses, but the main focus is preparing students for a career as an art theorist, an art historian. So let's say you have an interest in writing about art, or you want to look at being a Renaissance art scholar. This is the type of program that would be a good fit for you. And again, it mirrors our BFA studio program. It's smaller, but there is crossover between these two programs in order to ensure that students, if they are studying to be an art historian or a contemporary art theorist, understand the studio production side of things. And as part of our BA in art history, we do have many resources on campus to prepare students for this career. So for instance, we have our Goldfarb Center for Studies, and this houses York's collection of art. So you can go into this secure room and actually look at works of art by Andy Warhol or, the Group of Seven or contemporary Inuit Canadian artists. So this is an opportunity for students to actually physically work with these real works of art. And there are opportunities for students who are interested in curatorial studies to perhaps curate exhibitions of some of these artworks, or maybe look at working in institutions as part of a placement or mentorship opportunities. That could be something like the Art Gallery of York University, which is our professional on-campus gallery, or perhaps working at a local archive with some of our alumni. Our faculty, again, is largely composed of dedicated full-time faculty who are all practicing professional artists with national and international careers. So when you go down our website and look at, practicing artists, or look at who the faculty are and you Google them, you can see the paintings and sculptures that they make. You can go to their websites and see that they're actively exhibiting their work across Canada, but also internationally. So that's artists like Professor Michel Dagnon, who is primarily a faculty member who teaches in our painting program. We also have Judith Schwartz, who teaches in our drawing and sculpture program. This is some of my own work. I work in steel fabrication and public art, and these are a few pieces that I actually fabricated in the York studios using the facilities alongside some of our students. We have other faculty such as Professor Yam Lau, who explore the intersection between analog and digital practices. So he was trained as a painter, but he works more with a digital painting approach. So how can you use technology to create painted environments? And since this is his research interest, it is also something that he teaches in our undergrad program. The next main question that we have to explore is, who are we looking for? So I've kind of explained to you what York has to offer and what the strengths of our program are. But the question is, if we are a small program and we're only accepting between like 80 and 100 students a year, how do we find those students? How do we identify them and how do we support them? So the Visual Arts and Art History Department is looking for artists who are passionate about lifelong learning and want to integrate art into their future profession. The first thing to consider is how you become a BFA student. And the first step is applying through York University's website and following the online steps. Now, part of this process is applying to York, but once you fill out your application to York, you also have to apply to our department. And what gets you into our department is your portfolio. So the portfolio is how we evaluate whether a student is mature enough and prepared enough to come into our BFA honors program, but also if they meet the specific criteria we're looking for in our students. So this portfolio consists of 8 artworks. You can submit it online, so you can simply upload your document and your statement, and a faculty member will evaluate it, and you'll hear electronically whether you've been accepted or not. Or you can opt to do an online interview via Zoom. Usually we do these interviews in person, but obviously with the current situation with the COVID-19 pandemic, we are going to be doing these interviews via Zoom. One of the key things about the 8 artworks that you have to upload is that one of them has to be a current sketchbook. And that's vital. I'll talk a bit about that more as I progress here. So the question that always comes up is, what's better, an online submission or an online interview? So an online submission, if I'm a faculty member who's asked to evaluate that, I'm looking at your 8 works of art and your statement. So how you talk about your artwork and why you want to come to York University. I'm basing my judgment on what you're presenting with me there. An online interview, I'm still looking at all that information, but you and I are actually having a conversation about your future as a student. So whenever, when you come to the point of applying and you're trying to decide whether to do an online submission or online interview, I would really encourage you to do the online interview, because sometimes, I may be looking at a student and maybe they're just on the threshold of getting accepted to our program, and it's the online or it's the interview that really pushes them over the threshold. I get the sense of what their background is and what their desires are, and that they're really motivated to be an artist or an art educator, and that's what gets them accepted to our program. So if you can at all, do the online interview. When we're looking at your portfolio, you're being assessed both on your technical skills, but also on your ideas and imagination. Sometimes we get portfolios where they're really complex and they show a really intense technical skill and ability to draw or paint the world around them. And that is fine, and that's great. But if there's no evidence of imagination, if there's no evidence of like critical thinking, then that can actually hamper the application. So we look for that combination of not only technical skills, but the ability to explore something complex through your artwork. So one of the tips I would offer is that, you're only allowed to upload 8 pieces of art, but you can also think of like series as a work of art. So maybe you have 3 photographs that are part of a series, and that counts as one artwork. So consider that as well. And when you're putting together your portfolio, it should demonstrate a variety of media as well as one or two key works. And so this means if you're uploading 8 works of art or presenting 8 works of art, they can't all be photography. They should be a combination of any of the following media. So, you know, perhaps it's a combination of digital art and painting. Maybe it's sculpture and painting. Maybe it's a mural and mixed media. Maybe you work across a spectrum of media and you can show me one of each of these things, and that's great. The reason we stress this is because we really are looking for students who can explore an interdisciplinary approach to making art. You may just want to be a painter, and that may be your goal, but in today's world of digital photography and Instagram and social media, you have to understand how photography works and how you can draw from photography to make you a better painter. And so that's why we stress we want to see artworks from across a minimum of 2 different medium. And again, this just kind of goes over that information. Back to the sketchbook. So a lot of students ask, why would I want to see a sketchbook? Why is that an important document in evaluating whether you belong in our program or not? A sketchbook, in many ways, is looking at your process, looking at how you think about the world around you. Most artists I know always carry a sketchbook with them. They're always doodling, they're always making notes, they're always clipping things out of magazines and gluing it in there. Maybe there's an important music show they go to and they want to remember that, so they glue the ticket stub in there. Maybe they pick up a pamphlet from, you know, an exhibition at the AGO and that ends up in their sketchbook. The sketchbook in many ways is like an external document that describes their experience of the world. Usually it can be quite a messy, dense, filled to the brim document that shows how you think about art, but also describes how you can take all these sources and combine them or curate them into what you want your own personal art to be. So keep in mind, this sketchbook, it's not a finished work of art. It should be filled with little sketches. It can be filled with clippings. It can be filled with poems. It can be filled with doodles. I am not looking, as an evaluator, I'm not looking for a finished piece. I'm looking for your thinking process and to see that you were always making artwork. So one of the things to consider is that if you do not have a sketchbook as part of your portfolio at the current time, get a sketchbook. And it doesn't have to be a fancy sketchbook. It can be, you know, a 3-ring binder with some regular paper in it. It can be a sketchbook you staple together. It can be a $10 sketchbook you pick up at any art supply stores. Write in it every day, sketch in it every day. Even if you're just daydreaming while you're stuck in a Zoom meeting, you should be sketching something in it. If you're looking for more challenging things to include in your sketchbook, then there's a lot of online portals that give you daily assignments to fill up your sketchbook. Again, the sketchbook is one of the most important elements of your portfolio. Now, when you're uploading your sketchbook, you're going to ask, well, how can I properly represent the sketchbook? Well, it's really easy. You're going to take your camera phone and you can make a short video of you flipping through your sketchbook. As the evaluator, I'm not looking at every page and evaluating every page. I'm just trying to get a sense of how you document and think about the world around you. So when it comes to the interview, there's always a question of what are the top 3 things you can do to make a good impression? And really, the interview is about making a good impression. It can be really the clincher that gets you into our program. And so what I want to stress is that you need to show energy. You need to be enthusiastic. You need to put your best foot forward. Talk about what excites you. Talk about an artwork or a process or an artist or a show or a book or a video or a movie that makes you want to be an artist. Usually the way these interviews work is I come in, we look at your portfolio really quickly, and then I'll choose an artwork and ask you to tell me about it. I want you to be excited about that artwork that I've just asked you to talk about. If you're not excited about your artwork, then I am not going to be excited about it. I will take an excited student who maybe has less art experience over somebody who has a ton of art experience, but who isn't excited by talking about their artwork any day. So be prepared. You know, there's going to be questions like, why do you want to come to York? What do you see yourself doing in 4 years? You know, are you interested in experimenting across different medium? Are there other classes or departments where you want to take studies at York University? So think about these things. Know what your GPA, your grade point average is. Know where you are in the application process, because these are some of the questions that the faculty member is going to ask you. And if you have answers ready, it shows that you've thought about this interview process and that you're prepared to have a conversation. Also, do some research, visit our website, look at some of our facilities. If you can, normally under normal circumstances, I'd say come on a tour of our facilities. That's not going to happen right now, but you can do virtual tours, or, we can connect you with one of our student ambassadors and have a conversation about what York has to offer. So look into the program and understand, what it is you're going to get from coming to York. And again, I guess the last thing I'm going to stress here is that our visual arts and art history department is part of a larger faculty. That's the Arts, Media, Performance and Design, the School of Arts, Media, Performance and Design. And so this means you can take classes in some of our other departments. That can be our computational arts program, that can be theater, it can be music, it can be film studies, it can possibly be design. But we're also part of a larger university, and whatever your interest is, you will find a class outside of our program that is going to complement your growth as an artist. So again, we're a small art school, but we're part of a big university. So you get the benefits of both of those worlds. That's the last bit of my presentation. So I think now what we'll do is we'll open it up to some questions. Does that sound good, Laura?
That's great. Thank you so much, Brandon. That was really informative. What I'm going to do is I'm going to promote our friend Jacob, who is a visual arts student. And Brandon, I will take you off Spotlight.
Sure.
There we go. Okay, so Jacob, you can unmute yourself, and if your camera ready, you can start your camera as well. Jacob is a second-year visual arts student, and he is working with us. Brandon mentioned very briefly our student ambassadors, and Jacob is one of those. And he will be doing our Instagram Live tomorrow with another classmate. And we'll go through some questions. I have a few here, and I will direct them as needed. Jacob, are you with us? All right. So our first question, some of these you did get to in the presentation, but we'll just go over them a little bit more as well. So somebody asked about double majoring. I'm going to go ahead and talk to that just a little bit. The double major process is not something you enter into as a first-year student. If you are interested in double majoring, it's definitely a possibility. But what you would do is come in under one program, and that would be your home faculty. So if you came in under visual arts, AMPD would be your home faculty, and then you could add a second major within any time at York, really, but starting after your first semester, once you have a few grades to look at.
Just to add to that too, I mean, my personal experience is that a lot of our students don't declare a double major until second or third year. And they usually take, like if you're thinking of doing a psychology and visual arts double major, they'll take a couple of classes in psychology before declaring that double major, just to make sure that it's something they really want to commit to.
Yeah, we had one student who worked with us who, she was a visual arts major. She was also doing concurrent education, and she had a minor in math. So she was eventually going to be a teacher. Well, she actually is a teacher now. And her teachables were going to be visual art and math, which is great. A question about taking other courses outside of visual art, but like music. So one of the things that our students do is called in-outs. It's part of their degree requirements. It's within AMPD, Arts, Media, Performance and Design, outside of their own program. So they do have a requirement to take some of those courses. And Jacob, I'm going to throw it to you for a second. Have you taken any of those in-out courses yet? And if so, what have you taken?
Yes, so for the required classes you need to take inside of your department, I took a class called Film in the City, And later in the next term I'm taking a music class. So I liked the experience. A lot of what I did was online, and it just gave you a little bit of insight to an area of the department you might not necessarily spend a lot of time in. And this kind of helps to broaden your view of the artistic field. And like Mr. Brandon Vickerd said earlier, it helps whatever you learn outside of your own major, you bring that back into the studio. And that goes hand in hand with a lot of the other classes I've taken outside of studio. So it was an enjoyable experience.
Great, thank you. We have a question about international students and the requirements. So yes, we definitely have a lot of international students from all over the world. The requirements do vary. It depends very much on what country you're coming from and what sort of education stream you were in that country. So the best thing to do is to go to the York University website, and I'll pop it into the chat for you as well. And you can choose the country you're coming from and check out the requirements there, and also give you our international recruiters contact information, because they have a wealth of information about all of that as well. One other thing that may be of importance to a lot of our international students is our English testing requirements. So we do require, if you were doing school in a non-English speaking country, that you have an IELTS or a TOEFL test, and the results will be in the website as well. So I'll pop that into the chat, and moving on to our next question.
Oh, can I just add something to
yeah, sure.
Sure. I'd also like to stress too that as an international student, you still go through the portfolio evaluation where you can upload your portfolio or do the interview online. I mean, one of the great things about the internet is that, you know, over the last year, I've talked to students all across the world about like what coming to York is going to be like, and, you know, how to prepare for that experience. So we really pride ourselves at York that we have a diverse student population, and that diversity includes international students, and recognizing that there's a lot of value to our program by having people come from different places across the world and bring their perspectives and share their perspectives with their fellow students. So we really do you know, relish those international students, and I encourage you to apply.
Wonderful. Our next question, do we need to have a portfolio to apply to the art history program?
You do not need a portfolio to apply to the art history program. So it is a direct entry program where you apply to it, and then that's based on your York application, mainly your grades and your GPA. So you do not need a portfolio to get into the BA in history. You know, if you ever do consider switching over to the BFA, then you do have to do a portfolio evaluation. And this is something I really want to stress too, is that the nice thing about our programs and York overall is that once you're a student, there's a lot of flexibility. So you might decide you're going to start in the BA history program. You do a year or two and you decide, well, I actually want to switch over to the BFA program. And that's fine. You just do the application process, do the portfolio interview, and those 2 years of study, 2 years of credits you've accumulated as a BA student come with you into the BFA program. So when you switch programs out at York, you don't lose all those credits you've accumulated. Because we're part of a big university, those credits follow you. So there's a lot of flexibility in, you know, what degree you want to pursue at York University.
Wonderful. I'll field this next one. It's how do we apply to the concurrent program? So concurrent education, you can apply to when you're applying to your I'll call them your base programs, your undergraduate programs. So as a student who's just applying, you would apply to whatever undergraduate programs you're interested in. So say studio art, and then you'd also apply to concurrent education. So you'd have to meet all the requirements of studio art and do the portfolio and all that. Concurrent isn't really going to talk to you until you have an offer from another program, because you do have to have an undergraduate degree to be going into Teachers College. So once you have been accepted into your undergraduate program, Concurrent Education will then look at your file and give you a response to that. They also have their own requirements. I think they do have their own evaluation as well. So that's something to be aware of. And you'd be doing both of those simultaneously. So it's a bit of extra work, but it's a really great program and very popular. Next up, we have somebody asking if there is a way to get their portfolio reviewed ahead of time. And I'd like to promote National Portfolio Day. So we have National Portfolio Day happening October 24th would be the biggest one. That's the quote unquote Toronto one, but of course everything is happening virtually this year. From 12 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And a lot of our faculty members will be there reviewing portfolios. And Brandon, did you want to talk about Portfolio Day?
I think National Portfolio Day is one of the best tools you can have for preparing for your real evaluation. So what this means is National Portfolio Day, it is an opportunity for you to show me your portfolio or show another faculty member your portfolio. And we will tell you this element is really great, but maybe you need to improve on this. This aspect is fantastic, but I need you to consider these things. So it's an opportunity for me as a faculty member to give you feedback on what you're including in your portfolio and maybe like where the blind spots in it are, so that when you do go through the actual evaluation to get into our program, you're as prepared as possible. You know, I'd also say, like, if you can't attend that National Portfolio Day, you can always reach out to us and, you know, possibly we can schedule some other kind of consultation just to ensure that you're ready for that evaluation.
Wonderful. We have a question about the specialization. So they're wondering if they have to continue with all of the different areas that you mentioned.
No. That is a great question. So we have some students who decide, you know, they come into our program knowing they're going to be a painter and they only take painting classes and maybe some drawing classes, but only to make them a better painter. That is fine. If you want to specialize in one particular medium, whether it's painting, sculpture, printmaking, video art, sound art, photography, you can do that. However, you know, we have some students who decide, well, I'm going to take sculpture this year. And then the next year they say, I like that sculpture class, so I'm going to take another sculpture class, but maybe I'm also going to take a photography class, or maybe I'm also going to take a painting class. And then the following year they're like, well, I'll keep taking sculpture, but maybe I'm going to take a sound art class. So some students are naturally more interdisciplinary, where they like to keep taking classes from a broad range, a broad spectrum. And that is fine. It's really an opportunity for the student to decide which classes prepare them best for their career as an artist. And, you know, I'd point out that once we get to the 3rd and 4th year level, you know, ideas that we're exploring, say in a video class, are very similar to the ideas we're exploring maybe in a photography class. So there's a lot of chances for a student to kind of bridge that gap and float back and forth between these different disciplines. But it's completely up to the student what direction they want to go and whether they want to specialize or not.
Jacob, can I ask you, have you chosen any specializations yet?
I came to York with the idea that I would be strictly sticking simply to drawing, but I encourage new students to really take advantage of the fundamentals program and treat it as a sampling platter for the different areas that you can pursue. You may have an idea of what you might want to specialize in, but I really encourage new students to kind of indulge themselves in the different areas, because there is a vast amount of different courses you can take. But at this point in my 2nd year, I do believe that I am going to be heading into more of an illustrative career. However, I have enjoyed classes such as time-based art, which I really love to do, painting that I've taken classes in, but yeah, illustration will kind of be where I'm going, in drawing-based medium.
Wonderful. Okay, we have time for just a couple more questions. One of them is somebody asking about the duration of the program. Typically, it is a 4-year program, but for any specialization, For example, the concurrent education, you're going to add more time for that. Or if you are transferring from another post-secondary institution, you may receive transfer credits. There's no way of knowing ahead of time what you would be offered in terms of transfer credits. It would happen during the application process. So depending on what you've taken, you might get some credits there and some time taken off, but typically we're looking at a 4-year program. And then we'll do one more. Somebody asked about adding things to their portfolio that aren't necessarily part of the program, like animation.
That is something that we really encourage. So, you know, when students apply and they present those 8 pieces of artwork, sometimes they include things like, you know, maybe a video they made on their phone, or an animation they made on their home computer, or, you know, maybe like a design piece. Even though we're not a design program and we're not the design program at York, they might include some of these things they've designed, like a friend's album cover or something. And that is great. I mean, as long as it shows like a discipline in visual arts and an understanding of visual arts language, then we really encourage it.
Okay. Jacob, do you remember what you included in your portfolio at all?
Yeah, it was a mixed match of a bunch of different things. There were a lot of high school work. So a lot of the assignments that I was being assigned in my high school arts classes got into my portfolio. It was a lot of drawings. It was some early paintings of mine. And looking back at my portfolio is fun because I can see kind of my growth over time. But I didn't really branch out as much as I should have. I definitely encourage new students to really explore different areas, and because the university wants to see a well-rounded portfolio.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, so we have just run out of time. I want to thank our attendees very much for being here, and I want to thank Brendan for that presentation. And Jacob, thank you for answering some questions as well. Just a quick reminder that Jacob will be available tomorrow as well on our Instagram channel at YorkUAD, and he and one of his classmates will be doing any questions that you might have, and that can be about the program, about student life at York, anything like that. So that'll be fun as well. So thank you so much to everybody. And we will be sending out the recording to all of our attendees. And hopefully we'll see you either on campus or maybe at National Portfolio Day.